So we're going to talk about the United States Congress. There's this channel that Roll Call operates. I've linked the latest video here. It's called Congressional Hits and Misses, and it's just, I don't know if it's something you want to laugh about or cry about, but it's Congress people acting in all sorts of ways. Just click the link. Again, I want to avoid the copyright strike and give it a watch. I think you'll be entertained. So the constitutional authority for Congress comes from Article 1 of the Constitution. Section 1 says the House and Senate, which I hope you know are the two chambers of our legislature, have all legislative powers. Section 2, House members elected every second year by the people of the several states, again, back when there were just kind of several states. Representatives have to be 25 years old. Representatives have to have been a citizen of the United States for 7 years. They have to live in the state where they're elected. Do they have to live in the state for X number of years? That's just an election code thing. It just depends on where you're living. And I am purposely saying Congress people because there are different requirements for senators. And the electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. And that's just 18th century jargon. It just means that everybody who was qualified to vote for a representative will be allowed to do so. So each state gets at least one U.S. representative. The number of representatives that a state gets, Illinois went down during the last census because we've lost people because they've moved out of state. That's a topic for a state and local government lecture. At least one representative for every 30,000 people. We are way above that right now for reasons you can read about in this article I've linked. Again, won't avoid the copyright strike, but please read it. So when vacancies happen in the representation from any state, the executive authority, meaning the governor, therefore shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies. Writs, it could be 1, could be 10, however many positions need to be filled. The governor has that power to do that. So the House will choose its speaker and other officers, and most of the time this is done pretty quickly and seamlessly. The party leader of the majority party is usually just kind of elected speaker. This doesn't always happen, as we saw in the case of Kevin McCarthy, who had a very short speakership and took 15 rounds of voting to get elected. They choose other officers too. There's a sergeant at arms. There's deputy speakers. There are other officers that need to be chosen. The House will have the sole power of impeachment. Let me explain what that means, since there are always a sizable minority of students who get confused on the subject. The House member or members of the House get together and say, I think that President X is doing this wrong and it's illegal and it rises to the category of high crime and misdemeanor. All right, so they'll draft a bill saying that I don't like that President X maybe drinks lemon-flavored Gatorade. I mean, it's just a silly example. All right, so a majority of the House agrees that drinking and liking lemon-flavored Gatorade, or lemon-lime, I think it is, rises to the level of high crime and misdemeanor, and that's that. The president has been impeached. All right, that is the extent of what an impeachment is. Then it is the responsibility of House leadership to walk that article of impeachment down to the Senate. The Senate is responsible for holding the trial. to determine if the president, or any other federal official, I should say, too, but we most often, hear and talk about the presidents when it comes to impeachment, if the president is guilty of a high crime and misdemeanor, if, for this example, liking and drinking lemon lime Gatorade. So that's it. And if the Senate finds the president, in this example, guilty, then the president is simply removed from office. That's it. If there's any illegal happenings going on, that gets kicked to the FBI or the relevant law enforcement agency. So the election of the Speaker for the 119th Congress, which is the most recent Congress, breakdown here is as follows. Johnson, who was the Speaker in the last Congress, 218 votes. Jeffries, 215 votes, and Tom Emmer, who's a member of the Republican Party, of which Mr. Johnson, or Speaker Johnson, as he is head in that chamber, got 1 vote. So there's that. At least it didn't take 15 tries to get this result. But that happened January 3rd of this year. So what does the Speaker do? Again, questions about this will be on the midterm. I'm recording this for the summer 2025 session. So the midterm or whatever test you've got coming up, I plan on using this video again. So watch this again, avoiding the copyright strike. What does the Speaker do? So we move on to the Senate. Section 3. Each state gets 2 senators. And there are 3 classes of senators. There's really not much difference between them except for the year they're up for election. There's a third of the Senate that's up for election every 2 years. The whole House is up for election every 2 years, all 435 of them. Only 1/3 of the Senate is up for election every 2 years. So if there is a vacancy, the governor has more power in this case. He or she can simply appoint a guy. This is what our former governor, Blagojevich, got in so much trouble for back in the day, trying to sell President Obama's Senate seat. So the vacancy, the governor can fill the seat for the remainder of the term. And there's nothing anybody can do about that. It's whoever the governor wants. He can just kind of send. I'm assuming there's some consultation, but it's the governor's power. Senators must be at least 30 years old, a resident of the United States for at least 9 years, and an inhabitant of that state for which he shall be chosen. The Vice President will be the President of the Senate. He will not have a vote unless there is a tie 50-50, and it's a safe bet that the Vice President will vote in whichever way favors the administration. Vice President Harris broke more ties in the Senate than any other vice president in the history of our nation. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or something to be proud of, but there you have it. The Senate shall choose their other officers and also a president pro tempore in the absence of the vice president, or when he shall exercise the office of president of the United States, meaning the president pro tempore is called upon to act as president. Okay, so the president pro tempore is usually, I think of a case or two where this hasn't been the case, is from the majority party in the Senate. That's a fact. But is the typically longest-serving, oldest, most curmudgeonly, one-foot-in-the-grave member that the majority party's got. In this case, his name's Chuck Grassley. In this Congress, he is in his mid-90s. He's been in the Senate for, well, if he's in his mid-90s, he's been in the Senate for a long, long time. the senator from Iowa, one of them, the senators from Iowa. And there you go. Just think about that. We've got J.D. Vance, if something happens to President Trump. We've got Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, next in line to the presidency. And then we have Chuck Grassley, who's in his mid-90s. So the Senate will have the sole power to try all impeachments. And I explained this to you, but it doesn't hurt to explain it to you again. After the House formally impeaches an official, they walk the articles of impeachment down to the Senate, and the Senate conducts a trial to see whether the official is guilty of the high crime and or misdemeanor and or both that the House has impeached them over. So when the Senate sits to impeach, they are under oath. When the president is tried, POTUS, President of the United States, he gets the Chief Justice. So the Chief Justice presides at the hearing. The first Trump impeachment trial had Chief Justice Roberts in charge. The second one, the President pro tempore, because the Senate was under Democratic control, Pat Leahy was in charge. The Chief Justice felt that since President Trump was no longer in office, he didn't need to be in charge of a second impeachment. So 2/3 of the members of the Senate are required to convict the official being impeached of whatever wrongdoing the House says. So judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office. So that's it. That's what the goal is. If the House feels the need to impeach an official, to get 2/3 of the Senate to say, aye, you're guilty, and have them removed from office. And disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. So they're never holding office of any kind again. The party convicted will be liable and subject to the law. So that has, again, nothing to do with the impeachment process. That's just if there was illegal activities happening while Party X was a congressman or senator or whatever, then it gets kicked to the relevant law enforcement agency to deal with. The states will decide where, when, and how senators and representatives are elected. The Congress, if it wants, can alter these regulations except as to the places of choosing senators. Congress will gather at least once annually. And once annually was when we were very much a small farming nation. Okay, so the states decide where, when, and how senators and representatives are elected. We choose our polling places. If you remember from federalism, the unit on federalism that we did, I mean, elections are a matter for the states. So, we all have the election, say, for president in November, but we're not doing it uniformly. If Washington, D.C. was in charge of counting ballots for national elections, I mean, I honestly think George W. Bush would probably still be president right now, because they would not be good at it. The Congress, if it wants, can alter these regulations, except as to the places of choosing senators. And that was obviously prior to the constitutional amendment that allowed for the direct voting of senators. It used to be that senators were chosen by the state assembly, and that's done in the capital. So the capital of the state, so Springfield in our case. Each house shall be the judge of the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members. A majority of membership in a House will constitute a quorum by which to conduct business. So it's not typical, but it's been known to happen that the House, in fact, I've only ever heard or read about this happening in the House of Representatives, the House will reject the election of a member on one ground or another, but it's up to them to accept the people's choice. So to conduct business, to conduct the daily business, I mean, it requires 51 senators being present and 218 House members. That's a majority of membership in both houses.